And also, please, during the presentation, just leave your questions in the chat, and once we're done with the presentation, we'll get back to them towards the end. So this way, you don't forget what you want to ask, and maybe also other people have had the same question, so they know that it's already something that we will address. All right, so let's start. As usual, we're recording this session, so in case you miss anything or if there's anything you want to get back to, it's always available, and we post them a couple of days after to the Ecom Connect, the event page specifically. So hi, everyone, and welcome. If you don't know me already, my name is Jennifer. I'm the community manager at ITC's Ecom Connect. So today we will be primarily talking about one of the quite critical question we get from entrepreneur, and also something that we addressed through many of the activities and the programs that ITC implements, which primarily focuses on export. And the main question is, which markets should you actually spend time on? Instead of really chasing random opportunities, or, for example, making a connection with someone and saying, okay, I would export to this country because I already know a potential partner. This way you have data, you have research, you have numbers that validate this research or contradicts it. So the whole point is not to get stuck with a gut feeling specifically, but really to validate all of your information and your gut feeling, if that's it, with actual data. So we will start using, for example, ITC's Export Potential Map, Market Access Map, and we'll also talk about Google Trends and how these three tools together help you make these data-driven choices. So the session will be a little bit practical. We'll see some examples. They're not real examples. They are just for us to be able to test things out. And most importantly, after the session, you leave with a workflow that you can apply anytime. So I know people, for example, are familiar maybe with some tools, but they don't know how this technically would get you to a point where you can actually use this in together if you want to be able to prioritize, have a list of priority of countries to tackle. So basically, as I said, what we'll start with is market research for export. We'll look at why is it important, and then we'll move on to the three tools. It's very practical. As I said, I tried this time as well not to overwhelm the presentation, so you know exactly, you leave with an actual workflow that helps. So ITC Export Potential Map, ITC Market Access Map, and then Google Trends, and as usual, Q&A and wrap up. So let's get started. Why we talk about picking actually the right market? First, if you think many entrepreneurs would come and think, okay, if my product is good, I should be actually selling it everywhere. Maybe theoretically that's correct, but practically that's not very realistic. I mean, specifically when we talk about B2B businesses, selling everywhere is not feasible. B2C, maybe if you have your own e-commerce website, then maybe this is possible, but also prioritizing certain markets will be very important for your marketing campaign, for your SEO, for your content marketing. All of the marketing strategies that you'll be implementing should be focused on a specific market, but that's another topic. But also when you expand into too many markets at once, you drain your money, your time, and your energy. And sometimes you get to a point and you say, okay, but this does not work. This product is not working, this business is not working. And that might not be the case. It might be that you're just trying to focus on too many markets, or actually not have one specific market that you're focusing on. So instead, if you choose the right one, you can focus your resources, you can find better buyers, and you can really grow faster, focusing on the market that you've selected. So when you base also your decision on this data, you're no longer guessing. So you can have a solid strategy with confidence. You can go and seek investors, or require loans, or partnership, for example, in specific country, with an actual strategy that is based on data. So usually we also get the question about when is important to do market research. Of course, when you're starting a business, this is very interesting. You should actually do market research, but this is not a one-off task. It's something that you need to revisit at multiple moments. So for example, if you are launching a new product, you need to know which markets are most ready for this product. Specifically, if you're doing some innovation in that product as well, there are definitely markets that are more ready to test new products or to buy something that technically is a new offering for them. If you want to expand abroad, there's also research for a market actually helps to avoid costly mistakes. If, for example, your sales are flat, or you've been doing the same number of sales for a few months now, or it is dropping as well. So you might to do this market research to be able to see what better markets are available and how are you going to position your product as well in these markets. Also, something that is very relevant, specifically if you're not, for example, at the moment doing export, but the competition within your market or within your country of sales at the moment is rising, and you need to find better markets. You need to diversify your sales channels, your markets, so you don't rely on one country or one sales channel. So you want to find other niches as well. If you are pitching to investors, to partners, if you are requesting a loan to increase the volume of production, for example, or hire more people as well, you need to have this market research to solidify this pitch. And really, even if nothing at all, nothing dramatic happens, we recommend in general revisiting the market research every 6 to 12 months. Usually some trade agreements or some, I don't know, collaboration between countries are happening that might affect or might create an opportunity for you to launch into a new market. Now, there is one difference because that session is not very specific to either B2B or B2C. So I want to highlight at different points that element. So for example, for B2B exporters, often you do research ahead of trade shows, for example, because you want to go and know exactly what are the potential questions that people will ask you in the trade show, and to be prepared to a certain extent when you're doing contract negotiations with partners or when you're targeting distributors. So you go there with an offer, with a pricing, and with something that actually will be attractive to these distributors. Also, when we talk about B2C exporters, this is less significant, but also very relevant because you want to align your offer with consumer demand. So for example, you're targeting another country that has different holiday cycle or has a different, I don't know, during the holidays they have, for example, they do some kind of dessert that consumes a lot of pineapples, and you are an exporter in pineapple, so something that you don't know specifically, but that means that you can target your negotiations, you can target your collaboration with these partners around these times because this is when the demand is the highest. So again, this depends on the sector, but at the end of the day, that means the whole point from this is that you need to do every 6 to 12 months, ideally, market research, and depending on what sector you are in, that might vary a little bit. Now, this is our roadmap for today. First, what we will do is we will use Export Potential Map. So this is basically to try and see where is the opportunity for your product, for your market, for your service, whatever it is that you're offering. After that, after we spot the opportunities, we will get to use another tool, which is Market Access Map. So what are the barriers? Let's say you've identified these countries. Can I actually export there? There's obviously sometimes when there are many opportunities, that means that either the access requirements are either too easy or too hard. So we need to validate to see if, for example, the requirements are more complicated, they have higher taxes. All of these things will help you refine from the initial selection after Export Potential Map to say, okay, From these four countries, I think this one I will start with because it's the easiest. And then we'll also use Google Trends, basically to try and identify when and how the demand is happening. So Google Trends is more of it's a different type of tool, and I'll explain to you when we get to that section. But it's also relevant to be able to validate these demand signals from the market. And finally, what we'll do is we'll do a short list prioritization. For example, rank your top 3 markets or your top 1 markets, and then you take action. You refine the content, offers, and the entry strategy for that market. So let's get started with ITC Export Potential. So first of all, Export Potential Map is your starting point. It has data on demand, supply, and trade competitiveness. So at the end, the key output you get from this tool is basically where does my product have good market potential? You'll be able to see current exports, so what's happening now in these countries, potential exports, so what's possible, untapped opportunities. So that's the gap between current exports and potential exports. And ideally, you want to get to an untapped potential that is significant that you can, I mean, you're not going to cover all the untapped potential, but even if it's small and you have a small production, that is still significant. So also keep that in mind that if it's the untapped potential is not very high, but you have a small production, then that's always something to consider. So this works for both B2B and B2C. So keep in mind, in B2B, you want to use it to spot which markets import your raw materials, ingredients, or components, depending on what you said. And from a B2C perspective, you use it to find markets where the finished product or the finished consumer products are already in demand. So both of these work, of course, different selection criteria depending on the market that you are in or whether you're doing B2B or B2C. Basically, ITC's Export Potential Map covers 226 countries, which I think is I don't know how many countries there are, but that should be significant enough. It has over 4,658 products covered in 19 sectors. So it's a little bit unlikely that whatever you are selling is not covered under this. It's updated twice a year, and it has an average of 1,500 daily users. So this is all to tell you that it has a big range. It covers many countries and a lot of products, and it's actually a very trusted platform in terms of getting information for businesses. Now, I'm not sure the video is going to work, but let's try it anyway, or else I will open a YouTube directly the link. So Elvira, just let me know if it's working once I click on it.
No, not really.
Now.
Now, yes. Jennifer, the sound is not clear at all.
Okay. Anyways, it basically re-summarizes what I've said, but we'll look at more specific example now with these charts. So here we are looking, and I'll send you the link, everybody, if you want to check it after. So here in this example, we are looking at a market section. So you see here the differences. You have pork products, markets, and exporters. So we are looking at the market section of the export potential map. In that example, I took that the exporter country is Nigeria and the product is cocoa beans. Okay, so you can try to test it out for your products after the session. So you can see from the data, of course, there are three different types of visualization. I think I have an example with a geomap. But for now, we're looking at the gap chart. So basically the gap between export potential and baseline exports and where there is this untapped potential. So here you are looking at, as I said, cocoa beans from Nigeria. So you can see that the market with the greatest potential for cocoa beans are actually the Netherlands. So this is number one, followed by Malaysia and Indonesia. And you can see also, so once you do that on the export potential map, you can see the details. So I took an example of Indonesia in that case. You can see that the export potential is 147 million. The current export is 81, or the baseline export, and the unrealized potential remaining is 66 million. So that means that you have a potential, if you're selling cocoa beans, you have a potential 16% of unrealized export potential. So that means that there is some competition, but there's still a space for an additional player in the market. Okay, specifically, again, if we're talking that you have a significant production or you have a small production, that means that you can also compete in that market. Another example is here for the exporter country is Ivory Coast, and they are exporting cashew nuts in shells in that case. And I've tried the GeoMap, which is more visual, but a little less clear if you just want to identify the countries. But you can always switch between them, and there is absolutely no problem. So you can see that the biggest market with greatest potential export for Côte d'Ivoire, for Ivory Coast with cashew nuts is Vietnam. India, and then I guess followed by China, but it doesn't show on that visual. But you can always, as I said, go back to the gap chart and see that difference. So we look, if we say, let's say top 3 or top 5, you can select the top 5 country. I took the example of Vietnam. So Vietnam has an export potential of 2.1 billion. The baseline export is 720 million. And you see that the unrealized potential remaining is 1.3 billion. So you see here that represents 73% of the unrealized export potential. So if you compare between the other case study and this one, there is more chances. This one is more not beneficial, but you have more chances. But also, this is only a first step of selection criteria. We have to look after at the market restrictions, depending on which country, and again, where are you exporting from? So that makes it a bit of a distance depending on where you want to go. There is another example. I mean, it doesn't apply in many cases, but for example, if you're doing research and you want to see Ivory Coast to which, like what are the products that Ivory Coast can export? So you can use the product section and not the market section, which is a little different. You see what are the most popular exports for one country. You can use that with ITC's Export Potential Map. So you can see here that the products, sorry, I think I switched my view. Yeah. You can see that the products with greatest export potential from Ivory Coast to the world are cocoa beans, cashew nuts in shell, and technically specified natural rubber. I have no idea what that is, but you can see that cocoa beans have the largest absolute difference between potential and baseline export. So This is not a case where, for example, you are a production, and you have like a product that you want to export, but this is only, for example, if you are doing a general research. Now, I think for this one, maybe let's open it directly on YouTube.
Export potential map, like untapped export product diversification. Covers 4,000 products providing information for over 100 countries and territories, English, Spanish, and French. Over $2 million in for growing flexible exports. Exports, training potential. One reach the free export local export. Germany, Netherlands, and Canada. The US has 77 million in remaining potential. Contrast UK and Germany vital import from Cambodia. Germany, and the potential of export rank the market by room for export growth, bringing the US, the Netherlands, and on the bottom right. Look at regions of interest. We can focus on regional markets in Asia and
All right, so basically, you will see that on the video, the tool is a little different because it's been recently updated, but the functionalities are all the same. It's just a little bit more user-friendly. So basically, what we've done with the first tool is technically we've identified, let's say, top 5 countries to consider in export, depending on the export potential. Now, what we want to see is basically realistically how hard it is for us to penetrate that market, and what are the conditions, what are the limitations, for example, by using the ITC Market Access Map. So what is the ITC Market Access Map? It's also another tool that's a portal. It's available online like the trade map, but it actually lets you know the tariffs, the preferential trade regimes between the countries, if there are some advantages to exporting to that country, what are the regulations or what we call the non-tariff measures, the rules of origin, and the documentations required. So depending on certain trade agreements between countries, if they are preferential trade agreement or preferential countries for export, all of these will be found, but you have to do it individually depending on the initial selection of countries that you have with ITC Export Map. So it has to compare all of these things to try to understand how hard it's going to be or how easy it's going to be for you to export to that country. So what we need to do basically is check certain barriers before committing to exporting to a country. So it provides detailed information about how much it costs in terms of duties to export your product into another country. So both under the what we call the normal tariff schedule and under any preferential trade agreements that may exist between countries. Most importantly, it also goes beyond tariffs. So it's not only the tariffs and the duties that you have to pay. It shows also like non-tariff measures, like for example, sanitary requirements, safety regulations. What are the labeling requirements? What is permitted, what is not? So it shows you for example, what rules of origin apply. So what you must show or prove that you made your goods, for example, in Nigeria, or for example, if this is not necessary, but you have to prove a certain a local certification of organic foods, for example, to be able to have an organic label on the product. So sometimes when you show these the rules of origin, this is sometimes improves your trade, ease your trade if you have these rules of origin certification. Another big advantage you can compare with Market Access Map is that you can compare different markets. You can basically run what-if scenarios, for example, if a trade agreement change or if tariffs are lowered, and you can download this data for deeper internal analysis. So this helps you avoid like surprises at the last minute or things that are regulatory tariffs or duties that you didn't expect. So mainly tariffs and duties, rules of origin, non-tariff measures. So these are all the technical requirements, and you get the needed list of requirements in terms of certification and documentation. So basically, it allows you to analyze the market, to compare access between different markets, so you can, from your initial selection of countries, prioritize one or two, and then analyze these markets. So let's look a little bit more in depth, because I know this is where many people get a little confused, specifically when we're talking about export. So the tariffs or duties are the first thing to check. They directly affect whether your product will be able to compete price-wise in a new market. Because let's say the country already has other products, they are either exporting them from somewhere else where the tariffs are not that high, but you need to make sure that your product actually is competing in terms of price in the target market. So even if the demand is high, something we've identified with market ITC not access map, export potential map, even if we identify that there is a high demand, when we talk a 20% tariff, for example, or duties, that can really push your product to become not competitive price-wise. So let's say you are exporting chocolate to a country with a 25% tariff. That means your product could end up being too expensive to the consumer at the end. Some countries have certain trade agreements like GSP, EPA, or AFCFTA, which is in Africa, that reduces or removes tariffs if you can meet certain requirements. So this is why we do that step in that research. Always check when you're doing ITC Market Access Map if the tariffs are low enough to make this market really realistic for you to be able to compete price-wise. Also, when we talk about rules of origin, so sometimes to benefit from lower tariffs under specific trade agreements between countries, you must prove where your product originates. So that's not by exporting from that country, you need to have the proper certification. So for example, coffee grown and processed in Kenya may qualify for preferential entry to the EU, but if it's roasted somewhere else, then it might lose that benefit. So that's why you are required to submit certain documentation to validate that this is the rules of origin. So rules can be strict for sometimes processed goods. If we're talking about textiles, electronics, food products, where you have like multiple ingredients and not one ingredient. So because you might be exporting or using local products for part of the production, but not all of it. If you can't meet the origin requirement or the rules of origin, your product may face higher duties, even again, if the demand exists. So always check whether it's needed, and if it's needed, whether you can prove it. Next, we talk about NCMs, which are non-tariff measures. So these are, there are some rules that products must meet to be able to enter a country. That means sanitary, phytosanitary standards for fresh produce. Sometimes labeling, there are labeling requirements for food and cosmetics, such as, I don't know, no paraben, not tested on animals, things like that. And then you have, for example, for electronic products, you have a certain safety standards that you also need to validate that you have. Sometimes these are actually harder to meet than the tariffs. Specifically when we talk about fresh foods, because in certain countries, and now it's becoming the trend that they don't want to have fruits with pesticides. So that requires a different approach, because that you need to confirm that you don't have used pesticide and not that you have not added stuff to the product. So it's a little bit more complicated. Also, these non-tariff measures can vary sometimes by buyer. Some importers demand higher than legal standard. So even if the country allows for some measures, but some importers or some partners that you may have locally might have higher demand, because the consumer at the end requires a certain another standards. So you always want to also check that all of this complies, the cost of getting this certification, all of these things is actually worth all of this effort, and it's going to keep your product to be competitive. And finally, also in that section, some markets or buyers won't consider to buy your products without specific certification. So that could be, for example, halal if you're selling in the UAE, or CE if you are marking for electronics in the EU, or organic certification, also when we're talking about health conscious markets. So these certification can be costly. So you also need to budget for them in your market entry strategy. So if you selected, I don't know, Germany for exporting pineapple. I don't know what's my issue with pineapple today. And let's say the minimum expectation from the market is no pesticide and organic. How much does it cost to get the organic certification? And whether you add this on top of the tariffs and the duties and the requirements, does your product still make a competitive price? Maybe, of course, you don't account for the certification to make up the budget that you've spent on getting the certification within the first export. But if you export for 3 years in Germany, would that have a balance or return on investment to get the organic certification? So that's one example, but then it depends on the market and the requirements. Also, when we talk about ITC Market Access Map and try to think differently between B2B and B2C, usually B2B exporters, they focus on tariffs, on the standards in terms of sanitary and custom clearance efficiency, whether actually when you actually export, how long will the process take to clear customs. And that's another criteria that is important. The more requirements, the more regulations, the higher possibly the time to clear customs. For B2C, all of this research is important to focus on packaging. So what are the expectations for the labeling? What are a consumer certification also expectation? Can you give you an idea about usually what the consumer expects? So this is an example. I think I've also used pineapple, or no, I don't think so. No, I did use pineapple. Mango, sorry. So this is a mango exported from Ivory Coast. For example, under Export Potential Map, they identify 2 potential export countries. That's not true. I just made up certain countries just to compare them. France and UAE. Okay, and now they use market access map to compare access conditions for these 2 countries. So you can see here we've selected Ivory Coast as the exporter country. The importer country is France. We'll have to do it twice. And then when you put mango, if you don't know already the HS code, you can either look it up outside of the platform and then input it here, or look at mango and really select from all of these things because it's usually categories. So you see here, it's dates from the same category, but it's a different product. Dates, figs, pineapple, avocados, and this is guavas, mangoes, and mangosteens. So we would select the last one in that image. We start with France. You can see that what we can tell is basically to confirm the export country Ivory Coast, importing country France. You can see that there are no tariffs. So this is great. If I'm already selecting France, it's a top priority. There are no trade remedies, but there are regulatory requirements, and there are 33. Now, of course, if you want to see them, you can look at them and then look whether this is something that you can comply with or not. We've done the same exercises for the UAE, and you see that the tariffs and the remedies are the same. But the difference is that you have a higher regulatory requirements for mangoes being exported from Ivory Coast. You have 114 regulatory requirements. So in that case, it would be way easier. I mean, again, depending on what are the actual requirements, but it would be way easier to think about starting with France as a first market instead of the UAE. Now, that also means something different. That also means that there may be less competition or more competition in these markets. So you have to also consider the logistics of exporting to these countries, of course, calculate the final selling price, but this is basically one selection criteria that says, okay, it will be easier for me to access that market. And this is the information that is most important to get out of ITC Market Access. So that brings us to step number 3. We've made, 6 countries selection in Export Potential Map, identified 1 or 2 after when we did validate this data with Market Access Map. Now what we want is something way easier to try to understand a little bit the market trends in these countries. So in that case, we use Google Trends. So this is obviously a free tool that Google offers to everybody. But the difference is that we get information about what people are searching for in a given country, okay? So it reflects consumer searches, but not exporter activity or trade data. So it's not about the market access, it's about the users, the end users, which if you are in B2B, you're not really interested in, but you want to see if, for example, it would be better to start negotiation with a partner 2 months before there is a peak of, pineapple demand, because by the time you confirm the order, sell it, it's ideal time for them to sell it to the final consumer. So what it does, what we call that it actually captures real demand signals, not only consumer interest or market possibility to access, but also at the end of the day, if the consumer is going to buy the product. So why it matters for exporters? Because you can see if people are actually searching for your product and the market you're considering. You can also check if this interest is seasonal or it's steady all year round. You can also compare 2 or more markets side by side if you want to see which has a stronger online demand. And you can also see how people search. Sometimes it's very important, specifically if they have specific requirement, and we're going to look at one example. So it's also important for marketing and product description if you want to inform your partner or whoever is importing the product. In general, for exporter, this is like a reality check. So trade data shows you from a macro level, but also Google Trend gives you like the consumer interest right now. So it's a little bit more realistic and on the ground than general information. So why we should do it? As I said, validate demand before investing in market, identify seasonality for better timing, and try to adapt that message to lower search behavior and combine it with ITC to have a full picture. So again, B2C tells you how to behave with consumer-facing strategies, where to run promotions, which keywords to use, what seasonal story to tell. And for B2B, it gives you a bigger picture to see if a consumer demand is actually validated with market indication. So here we've taken an example, same with the mangoes, comparing them in France versus the UAE. So you can see here I've selected mango as a fruit and not as a search term. Because there's also a brand, close brand called Mango. So we don't want to confuse the topic, but this is very important when you're doing research, because these are things that we never actually think about. Actually, I searched first as mango as a search term, but then I looked at the details and it's like, okay, no, this is not mango, the fruit. So you've selected France as a country, and you want to kind of have an idea, a general idea. You don't want to put the past 3 months because that's not really relevant. But if you put the past 5 years, you can see that there are peaks at exactly the same time. And if you hover over, you can see that this is which season it is. But you can also see that the peak has been technically changing and even decreasing, but overall the demand is the same. So for example, in that case, if you want to export to France, you want to start your negotiation with your logistics partner or the delivery partner or your the person who you will be importing at this point to give it enough time, because before the peak of demand. Also, when we look at the details, once you scroll, you can see the different interests by sub-region in France, and of course, Île-de-France is the area where you have the capital. So this is the highest demand, and then you can look at all of the others' interests. But again, this is interest at the country level. And also, if you scroll further under the search, you can see what people are searching on as well, like slash mango, dragon mango Starbucks. I'm guessing this is some seasonal drink that Starbucks has. Mango loco, but you can see different. Picard is, for example, a supermarket in France that sells frozen food or frozen food. So you can see that there are some correlation between these supermarkets as well. Now, if we do the same with the UAE, you can see that a little bit the peaks are longer in the UAE. So they are higher for longer period of time instead of just one peak around one season. And I guess this has to do, these are my guesses, with the weather. So because mango is kind of a summer fruit, so in the UAE, they are more inclined to eat mango for a longer period of time because the weather is nicer. And also here you can see top areas within the UAE that might be interesting. So in that case, for example, Dubai is and Abu Dhabi are not the top one. Ras Al Khaimah is. So this is something I wouldn't have guessed necessarily, but it's interesting to see. And you can see also the same in terms of the search topics, related topics, or search words. So that brings us basically to step number 4. What do we do after? So we've identified potential countries, we've checked market access, we've validated with seasonal trends, market demands, all of these things. Now we want to merge all of these insights together. So what you can do is create a simple scoring table to really compare the markets, but that's only if you have like a big list of markets. You want to reach each market based on potential, export potential, the barriers that you have, low, medium, high, the demand signals. This is Google Trends, and the readiness, your capacity to deliver. So you can basically try to prioritize. So it could be something like this. Let's say you had 3 countries initially, France, UAE, and the Netherlands for your mango. The potential, let's say, is low, but the barriers are low to medium, depending on which country. And demand signals are very seasonal, but in UAE, they are strong and steady. Your readiness, for example, medium, high, or low. So you can start with France as an example in the beginning. And then once you have mastered this market, you can move to the other one that is right now, maybe. And after, like Netherlands is not now, definitely never, possibly because the barriers are too high. The potential maybe does not quantify all of this effort if the barriers are too high. And that brings us to step number 5, which is taking action. After you've done all of this, you want to actually start to export to these countries. What you want to do is try to adapt your product description and content to match the search terms people use. This is if you're doing B2C. If you're doing B2B, you want to make sure that you're labeling your products, your packaging, everything that are required from the importing countries, that you actually abide by it. You want to also plan offers around market-specific demand. So if there is a seasonal demand or a steady supply, for example, in the case of France and the UAE, you want to plan that accordingly. And you can also package your finding into a 2 or 3 pager to help you pitch to investors, to partners, or if you want to have a collaboration with someone in country, then you tell them, okay, I've validated, this is what I have, and you have this higher confidence that most likely will get you better close deals. So that's it. That's the complete workflow. First, export potential map, you spot opportunities. Market access map, you check the barriers to entering these markets. Google Trends to validate the consumer demand. Shortlisting, you pick top 3 market, top 1 market, depending on your interest and size and your readiness. And then you take action to do a market entry strategy. So as a wrap up, this is important to use data, not instinct, to guide export choices, because export can be the riskiest way for you to lose money. You want to use ITC tools to give you a big picture at the macro view, so the opportunities and the barriers. And then you want to do Google Trends after to kind of zoom in at the micro view to try and see the demand and the timing. When you combine these insights, depending on if you're B2B or B2C, you need to take action, then prioritize and start exporting. I will stop here. I see a lot of people and a lot of comments, but before we get to the comments, I'm gonna run our usual poll. I think most people are already familiar with it, so you'll have the pop-up on your screen. 6 question, super easy. So please take a few minutes to less than a minute to complete them. This is not a rating on the webinar itself. It's mostly whether this information was something that you needed.
Jennifer, We have Beatrice, so she's keen to share with us her experience with the tools. Beatrice, if you can turn on
Great.
your camera and unmute yourself, I think it would be interesting to hear from you.
Hello, everyone.
Hello,
Hi.
Beatrice.
Yes, my name is Beatrice Ojedere. As I said, I'm happy to be part of this seminar. And actually, I've been using ITC to access map and checking opportunities for more than almost 10 years. We got introduced into this tool when She Trade came into Nigeria, and to encourage women, we were introduced into using this tool that is cost effective, is free. It was free for us because we have other platforms that charges huge amount of money to access market trends, export informations online. So I actually use it when I wanted to ship. I use mainly the price portal. I have to check, because when you open the price portal, you will see the current exports commodities all over the world, including Nigeria, the latest goods that was exported in a particular, for instance, now, if I want to ship charcoal, when I open the portal, I will check which company shipped charcoal last in Nigeria, the month, the date, and the time, how much was shipped. So it gives me an idea on how to price my goods to the potential buyer. So it has really been a very helpful tool. It was actually free. So thank you, ICT, for giving this tool freely. So especially women then. I don't know if it's free to men as well now. Thank you.
Great. I think it's always better when it's a business that actually confirms that these tools are useful. I think many people have, I mean, it's a little overwhelming, the tools in the beginning, but the more you test them out, the more you get familiar with it. So it's completely normal. All right, so let's see, what questions do we have? All right, I'm gonna start from the beginning. Shall we start from the beginning? Or maybe the end is easier because they are introduction. Is the tool updated daily? I am not sure which tool we are talking about, but I will send you Google Trends now. As in the chat. Market Access Map. And Export Potential Map.
Just to add, for ITC's tools, they are updated quarterly, sometimes yearly. So the latest update are available on each website. So you can see the latest date when it was updated. For Google Trends, I think it is done, but they do the synchronization with the Google generic search. But
Yeah.
for ITC, you can see the date for all the information. So everything is available on the website.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm not sure. I'm gonna close the poll. Google does it more often because this is search, and then export and trade is a little less, doesn't vary every day, that's for sure. All right, how did we get the final buyer? I am not sure in that case if you're selling B2B or B2C, but that's the research part. After when you've identified, for example, the market that you want to access, you can, for example, reach out and try some. I think one of the tools has potential partners. You can like the list of businesses in country, but you can also do research to try and see, or do trade shows depending on what you're selling, to try and find not the end consumer in that case, but the potential partners that will buy from you. Is there anything of such type for the service sector? That's a good question. Can you tell us what you're looking, because service does not, you don't have the issues with trade export. So you're a service, you don't need to approach it the same way. But I would be interested in like thinking about this with you, depending on what you said. This is Rahil. If you're still here, can you let me know what services do you provide?
Maybe I have an example here that I
Okay.
can give. So, for example, I have one of my SMEs who does business development support to other SMEs as well. How would such an SME use that? It's kind of rhetorical because I am doubting if they'll be able to use that at all. My name is Raphael from Sierra Leone, Freetown.
Hi, Rafael. In that case, when you're doing services that you don't really need to go through all of this process, what you need to do is do competitive research. So try to identify who are your competitors. That complicates things because you are looking at local competitors, regional competitors, or international, depending on what is your level of, like, your plans to be regional or local. And then you do competitive research, you look at their website. So basically anyone who is trying to get clients online as a service has a website or a listing on Google or something. You try to identify what they are doing right and what they are doing wrong, and try to see how you can differentiate yourself from them. It can be differentiating yourself from them by having better offers or different offers, by customizing some products or some services, by saying, okay, we do this, I don't know, business development very specifically for organizations that deal with climate change. Just giving whatever at this moment. But that is an offer that will resonate with your clients. In the case of services, it's a completely different approach. And then you have to do like analyze their website, see how much traffic they get. What are their marketing strategy? Are they doing SEO? Are they doing, I don't know, social media? Are they doing LinkedIn? All of these things to try and see how you can do it, but better. I think that's a good example to consider for services. Let's see what
Jennifer,
else.
this is Rahil. Jennifer,
Hi,
this is
Rahil.
Rahil.
Yes.
Yes, I asked that question for having such kind of tools to identify potential in services sectors. Like if I'm in Pakistan and I want to export some services to UAE, like fintech, cybersecurity, or AI, is there any tool which can provide me information that what potential do we have in UAE or other countries?
When you say export, that means you have an app that you want to start promoting in these markets, or you want to like, export does not really apply for services. I'm trying to understand.
Yes, exports it's not goods, but it's services. Like we do export services. In recent years, like in this year, we have exported 75 million US dollar services to Saudi Arabia. The primary services which we exported were comprises of cybersecurity, fintech. So these are the services which we export. But there is no such tool which can provide us dynamic information on market access or market potential when it comes to services sector. There is a lot of gap in this sector. Services, services is a big sector. There is IT and
That's true.
ITES. Yeah.
Yeah, I get what you mean. I don't know, Elvira, do you have any insights on this? Because definitely the tools that we've shared today are not relevant for services. It's mostly products.
So yes, definitely for the two, they are for goods and products. So as Jennifer mentioned previously, the most important is to do the research, online research. Sometimes Google Trends can provide a bit of information, but it is more related to specific sectors for services like tourism, medical services, but not like a specific software. So the most important in this case is to evaluate demand based on competitive analysis and also evaluating demand. And what we recommend to do is actually to identify your potential customers through interviews, through surveys. So what you can do, you can have a talk with your community in different countries to identify what's going on, what are the needs, reach out to some companies that may be your potential buyers and have a discussion with them on what could be their needs in the future. So for services, it's a bit complicated because we export virtually. So there is no track on how it is done. And actually, even for e-commerce, until now, the services, they are not very well managed. So there is no specific track on how many services are sold, cross-border selling. So maybe the best way would be to go with a competitive analysis and market research, online market research through articles, different LinkedIn, Google Trends, Google Analysis.
I have a few tools for checking competitive analysis for websites. So you have Similar Web. Sorry, the link is too long. But you have Similar Web and you have my favorite, Uber Suggest. This can be relevant basically for services and products as well. But when you're doing competitive research, you can see traffic, where it's coming from, all of these things. It's very interesting. Thank you, Elvira. I saw another question as well on China. So if you are exporting, let me find it again. Someone was asking, yeah, if you are exporting, I think China, so for the exporter, should be my country, and in market should be China on the map. Well, if you are already exporting to China, that means that you already know what are the requirements. So usually we do this to identify new markets. So if you are exporting from, I'm going to say Thailand now. If you are exporting from Thailand, you put Thailand as the export country, and you look for countries that are they have import potential. But if you want to do the research otherwise, you can also set China as a specific country, or you can sometimes check the word and try to see what are potential countries, or you can do specific research between two countries. But the logic usually for using these tools is to identify the potential markets and not already having a market. I think, sorry, I think you've had a few issues with the videos. I've shared one link to a video. I'll share the other one now. But basically, all of these things are available on the pages for the platforms. So you have specific channels to be able to see how to use them. And as Beatrice mentioned, it's you can watch them alone. They are very interesting, and you can identify. I mean, we didn't have enough time to go through into all the functionalities of these tools, but they do have a lot of possibilities if you're just discovering them. And the more you get familiar with them, the more you see ways to use them for your specific businesses. I'm not sure, Elvira, if we have still questions that were not answered.
No, I think we are fine. The only question that we had concerning recording, so some of the members, they are not able to check the recording on Ecom Connect. So maybe in the upcoming newsletter, we will share the recent recording sessions with them as well.
Yeah, it's also one thing that we need to do as well, Elvira, to try and have one channel for all the recording, because this way, if they watch one, they can see the other, and they have access for all of these things in one go. So, great. All right, thank you, everybody. I read most of your comments, and I know you found it very useful. I'm happy because usually this is a topic that's a little bit complicated for people to get, and we were able to do that in 1 hour, which is quite quite a significant challenge. So once you have the recording, you can review each platform individually, and then if you have any questions, you can always ask them on the Ecom Connect community. We'll be more than happy to help you, or to reach out to the market team that have developed these platforms as well. Thank you very much, and see you
Thank
soon.
you, Jennifer. Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you and bye.